Hi, and welcome back to part 2 of What's Wrong with Models. You will recall in our previous video that we defined what a model was, we looked at some different types of models, and we also looked at some of the advantages to using models. Today we want to look at some of the limitations. So let's start with our model airplane of the Blue Angels F/A-18 Hornet. We said in our previous video that this model is a representation of this. So just how good of a model is this? I would say it's pretty good. However, it does have limitations. It's not the real thing. It's made out of plastic while the real airplane is made out of metal. It doesn't have any of the mechanical parts of the airplane, so it can't fly. You can't even open the cockpit and see the controls that the pilot would use. So in that regard, this is a limited model, but that doesn't mean it's not useful. It gives us a good idea of what the airplane looks like and how cool it would be to fly it. So let's take a look at some different types of models. Here's a pretty cool model. This is actually a computer-generated model. It shows the Earth floating in empty space and rotating on its axis. So we have to ask ourselves, what's wrong with this model? Looks pretty good to me. And it is a good model. The author has lit one side of the Earth, shows the other in darkness, and they've even taken the time to put lights where the major population centers exist. So, what's wrong with this model? Do you need a hint? The timing is not accurate. That's what's wrong with this model. It shows the Earth turning pretty quickly. We know that it actually takes a day for the Earth to turn one rotation. But in this model, it's making a complete rotation in about 30 seconds. Okay, let's go back to our good friend the globe. We decided earlier that this was a good representation of the Earth. However, if we wanted to carry it around with us, it wouldn't be very convenient. In that case, we may decide to use a paper map instead. Now, does this model have limitations? Well, in order to understand that, we have to consider how do we get from this to this? And in order to do that, we're going to use this, an orange. An orange is like the Earth. It's a sphere, and the peel could be considered the surface of the Earth. So to make a model of the surface of our orange, we would first have to remove the peel and flatten it out onto the table to give us this. So, in a like manner, when we want to turn this into this, we get this. Not a very good model. Let's go back and look at our map. Are there any limitations to this? Sure. Look at Antarctica. Antarctica looks huge compared to the rest of the world. This map has a problem with scale and distance. Everything far away from the equator is huge, and everything close to the equator is normal. This is a common problem with flat maps that is difficult to overcome. We just have to understand that these limitations exist and then do our best to work around them. Here is a model that was actually created by NASA. It shows the Earth at night. What's wrong with this model? I'll give you a moment to take a look at it. What do you think? Okay, I'll give you a hint. How much of the Earth is lit at any one moment in time? The answer is 1/2 of it. This model shows the entire Earth in darkness. This never happens in real life. If it ever did happen, it would be a sad day for all living things indeed. Let's hope that never does occur. Here is another model that is used quite often in science classes. It shows the orbit of the Earth around the Sun. It shows the tilt of the Sun, and it is frequently used to explain the causes for the seasons. Take a look at this model. What's wrong with this model? This model has several issues. Most of them have to do with scale. This model is simply not drawn to scale. Look at the size of the Sun compared to the size of the Earth. This model shows them almost identical. In reality, the Earth is many thousands times smaller than the Sun. It would actually take almost 1,000,000 Earths to fill up one sphere the size of the Sun. Another issue with this picture is the orbit. Notice how the orbit in this model appears to be an elongated oval, or what we call an ellipse. And while it's true that the orbit of the Earth is somewhat elliptical, it's much more circular than is shown here. This distortion occurs, as all of you artists know, because of our attempt to take a three-dimensional object like an orbit and put it onto a two-dimensional piece of paper. Here is another model showing a top view looking down on the orbit of the Earth around the Sun. Notice that this model is much more realistic. It shows the orbit is nearly a circle, and it shows that the distance from the Sun to the Earth varies only slightly. Therefore, one of the most common misconceptions about what causes the seasons is distance from the Sun can be seen that is just not the case. This model does a much better job of showing that than the previous model did. In this video, we looked at some of the problems with models, including differences in materials, differences in time scales, distortions due to trying to make something into a different shape, and also problems with scales of distance and size. But what we really learned is that they are not problems, they are just limitations. And as long as we keep our eyes open, are aware that they exist, and are on the lookout for them, they should not cause us any problems at all. This concludes this video on the problem with models. Take some time to look over your notes, and when you feel like you're ready, go ahead and go into iExplore and take the quiz. Have a good day.